Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be working on the bumper this weekend. This video is going to be a bit short though. I ran into something that I wasn't counting on. Let me show you. I got this bumper here I got many years ago from a guy on Craigslist who said that the car had very low mileage. It was a family 64 Impala. It got T-boned. He took some of the parts off of it after they wrote the car off and threw them in his garage attic for decades. And so what we have here is the 64 Impala bumper. What I liked about this one was that it had the bumper guards, right? Okay, but since it has the bumper guards, that means that the end pieces right here are already drilled for it. But I came to find that this end piece on the driver's side had a bit of a twist in it, so it did suffer a bit of damage. So what's going on here is this piece on the end is bent down right here, and it has a couple of stress cracks in it right here on this curve. So I know that something's going on there. This has a slight twist in it, so I know it's not 100%. And if you look at that edge, you can see how it's bent up in the bottom. So it suffered some kind of damage in the collision. But one of the nice things is that this parking lamp assembly still has the original coating on it. So see how nice it is. And in general, the whole bumper is nice. I mean, you can see that it still has the factory flat black on the bumper. And so the other thing I found, let me put you down here so you can get a closer look at this, was that oh, hold steady. Okay, so this is bent down right here, right where it attaches, right there, right? So that means that this piece could be a bit tainted, although I take my straight edge and put it right here and find that there's a bit of a curve to it. You've got a gap here. So I'm thinking, okay, that must be part of the damage. But if we go over here, this end, which obviously didn't suffer any damage, do the same thing, we see that it also has a gap. But if we come over here to this end and do the same thing with the straight edge, we find that it also has a gap there, right? So that tells me that slight curve in it is part of the factory design. So I don't think that this piece is bad. What I could do is fix this, heat it up, bend it up a bit so that it's all in line, and then since this piece is so nice otherwise, I could use this piece. So enter the bumper that I'm going to use, and this is the one that came with the car when I got the car. It was came off a car that had 16,000 miles on it. It was a four-door hardtop. It's the same car that I got the replacement grill section from. And the only issue with this one is that there is some scuffing here. Now, I'm inclined to think that this scuffing may have come from being in the car when the car was shipped here. It may have been flipped upside down, and I got a feeling that's what this scuffing is. Maybe I can buff it out, maybe I can't, I don't know. But I've got plenty of other pieces that I can use. So, but anyways, the thing I need to do with this bumper, because I want to do bumper guards, is I need that hole right there to be able to mount the bumper guard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these other pieces right here, and I'm going to make a jig so that I can drill this hole in these parts. So the only problem I find with this bumper is that it's got scuff marks on it. And the source of these scuff marks I'm not clear on. I might be able to buff them out, I don't know. But anyways, I got a feeling that it was laying upside down inside the car when the car was shipped here. And you know, the vibration from the trip down the road may be responsible for that. But I don't know if you can see it at that angle. Probably be a little easier to see with some light reflecting off it. But it's just a whole series of scuff marks like that. Now here's something that I want to mention for you know, the ones out there that are the purists and got to restore their 64 Impala to perfection. I've got a bunch of these bumpers. I got 6 of them to take, you know, that I can take parts from. Now there's some very strong inconsistencies between the way these were assembled, and you can see here that the bolts at this end are coming up from the bottom with a nut on the top. On the majority of bumpers that I've taken apart, the bolt actually goes you know, down through with the nut on the bottom side. And strangely enough, the other inconsistencies are that you know, I find the lock washer on the bolt end, and in other places I find the lock washer on, you know, the nut end of the bolt. And then sometimes I find that, you know, there's maybe a lock washer on this one but not on this one, and you know, it's just some, I think there's some production line inconsistencies. So for the purist, I don't think you really have to you really have to get carried away with the perfection of you know, the assembly that way. There were a lot of inconsistencies and even mistakes from, you know, I guess one factory line worker to another. So my original thoughts on this bumper was that, well, actually the previous one that I showed you was that I was going to use that one, and it turns out that's just not the case. It's got some damage that I don't really want to use it for. So anyways, what I'm going to be doing is, since this one doesn't have the bumper guard holes, I need the bumper guard holes in this one. So I'm going to take this piece that does off the other bumper and make a jig so that I can put this hole here in the correct position. So this bumper is not going to go on today. There's going to be some surgery we got to do, so let me get on with it. All right, so I'm going to, on this bumper, I'm going to take a look at this, you know, this long bar here and see, you know, if this one is perfectly straight. So if I put my straight edge on here, I see that this one has no gap at this end, and we take it down here and we find that it has no gap down here either. So my previous theory that it might have been a factory curve on the earlier bumper is wrong. So this is the piece that I'm going to be using. So now it's finally 64 Impala bumper time. So here we go. So before I get the bumper on, I got to remember to put these splash guards on, and that's next. All right, so here we are. I'm going to put this splash guard, and it goes right up here like this. Attaches to the filler panel up here, the filler panel along the front, and then where the fender and the inner fender join there, and of course just the inner fender right there. So keep in mind that this round curve right here is what matches up on the, you know, the front corner of the fender. So here goes. From that kit that I got from Parts Geek, I ran out of the 5/16 body bolts that had the floating washer on them, so I'm using these ones with the molded in washer. So when they said that that kit was a fender kit, they were right, because it really only came with enough fasteners for just that, the fenders. It did have a lot of extras, and you know, for the price, that's good. I'm going to use them anyway. So, okay. So here we have that. I'm just going to tighten them up now. Now, on to the other side. All right, so I got the splash guards on both sides, and while I was under there, I spotted a couple of things that I'm pretty sure are going to lead to alignment problems with the bumper. So let's have a look at this. One of the things I noticed was right here, this space right here between the filler panel and the core support is smaller than the space is over on the passenger side. There's probably maybe a 1/4 inch difference. So what that points out to me is that this fender still needs a bit more work, and I knew that going into this, but it's got a slight swell in it right here. So what's going to happen when I finish working this, it's going to move the front of the fender forward a bit, and I think that's what's going to open up this gap right here, because I noticed that there was tension between the filler panel and this grill support, and the holes didn't quite line up properly. They went through. There's one of the interesting things about these bolts that GM use was that they have a tapered thread. So I think the reason for that was that on the assembly line, that helped eliminate a lot of bolt hole alignment problems, you know, for the workers, so that they had less delays on the assembly line. But that's just my my 2 cents. Anyways, let's take a look underneath. Okay, so the other thing is the frame here. Now, we know that the car was in a collision. So what's happened here is this is bent slightly up, and when I say slightly, I mean very slightly, not much at all. But what's happened here is it's folded right there. So that effectively means that you know, the bumper is probably going to align a bit high, but then the core support's also sitting a bit high too. So I don't know what kind of alignment problem that's going to present, but I need to put it together to find out. So if we take a look over here on the other side, it's uniform, pretty much, you know, pretty much the same thing going on. And what makes me realize that this is bent up slightly is that it's got a swell right here, and that's the same on both sides. So we'll find out. All right, so a couple things to note. Since I'm doing this by myself, I don't have any help, you know, to put the bumper on. I've done a couple of things to try to simplify the assembly. So I've taken removed the filler panel support, which would have gone, you know, right there, and that would have been, you know, that would have been fun trying to align that. The other thing I did was I removed the hood latch mechanism, and I did that because it's just going to be a pain in the butt trying to align it to get it to come through here where it needs to come through the front of the bumper right there. So that's just one less challenge that, you know, I need to deal with in doing this bumper by myself. So let's get started. So I got under there and realized that, okay, I have to undo a couple of fasteners because it's going to interfere with getting the bumper up there. And what that means is this support for the, you know, the filler panel in the front of the fender needs to go up here where the bolt went through the splash guard, and then this brace right here needs to go down through this brace. So I had to loosen this and turn it this way so that it's not going to interfere with, you know, this brace going in place, and did that on both sides. All right, just to get rid of a bit of interference here, which I found that, you know, these little braces were getting in the way, making it, you know, more fun. So I just simply, removed these from each side. So got that out of the way. Now I'm going to put it back up here and see how it goes. So I've elevated the bumper, as you can see. A couple of 5-gallon pails and a few extra pieces. I found that it sits level better if I can support it on the front here and the side. And the bumper seems to want to go onto the frame straight in. It seems to be easier that way. So it made sense to elevate it. Now I go underneath and put some bolts in. So I had to take care of the swell that was right over here. Just heat it up with some MAP gas and tap it down. I'll deal with fixing this part of the frame the next time I take the car apart for all the refinishing. But one of the key things here is that this support bar right here has to get over this, on top of this corner right there. So that's what I'm working on. I'm just shimming the bumper up to get the height on it. So we got it up there. By the way, these factory bolts, I only had 2 good ones. The other 2 were all rotted out, but they're a really odd size. They're a 9/16 fine thread. So I got to find some of those probably from a specialty fastener place. And for the time being, I've just used a 1/2 inch course right here. That's not permanent. The car's going to come apart again anyways after all this alignment stuff is done. And so I got both sides are in, so we're in good shape. And then I can now I'm going to work on putting those peripheral interfering devices in place before I set the adjustments on the bumper. So now with just those 2 bolts on each side in place, we'll take a quick look at the alignment. So we got a gap in there, of course, and the height on the bumper should be roughly just below the center of that. So it doesn't look too bad all along. And then we take a look at the gap on this side, and it's roughly about the same, but I'm going to get a ruler here and see. It looks like it might be slightly smaller here, but I think what might account for that is I still have to finish a bit of work here to move this in to pull the front of the fender out. But so far it looks pretty good. So what's coming next weekend? Well, I got something interesting. The bumper, of course, that I thought I was going to put on the car, it had the bumper guards on it, which means that it had the holes right here, so that I could bolt the bumper guard to it. But so I had to come up with something to get as precise a fit as possible. So what I did was I made a jig, and here's how it's going to work. I'm simply going to, it snaps on, got a hole right there so that I can drill the correct hole for this, and I've got one for each side, and they snap into place. So next weekend, that's what we're going to do.